At 10:03 a.m., the alarms on Meridian Capital's trading floor began to sing like a choir that had lost its sheet music. Shrill tones from the compliance wall, red banners crawling across 20 feet of glass screens, emails blooming with the subject line, "Urgent settlement delays." Mara Keane didn't look up. She had 3 windows tiled just so, a terminal in the corner waiting for a command she wasn't allowed to mistype, and a coffee she'd forgotten to drink because the taste of metal in her mouth said the clock was already running out. Keane, someone called, breathless. Theo Park, one of the new analysts, hovered with the guilty look of a person who'd pulled the wrong lever. Tokyo's stuck in pre-commit. Frankfurt's ghosting the handshake. It's the validation window, Mara said. The same pattern. We'll ride it out if we nudge the heartbeats, she typed, a careful, exact string that would nudge nothing without the right signature. The system required the original architect's biometric refresh every rolling cycle, a guardrail she'd argued for years ago and had been mocked for as paranoid belt-and suspenders garbage. She dekept it anyway. The money could run fast, the brakes had to be faster. A hush fell that wasn't a hush at all. Only the angle of attention shifting as the elevator opened and Preston Vale, CEO of Meridian Capital, strode onto the floor with 2 HR reps at his flanks like bookends. He had TV brightness, lacquered hair, a tie with its own agenda, the smile of a man who believed oxygen owed him royalties. "Mornin' team," Preston said, voice pitched for cameras that weren't there. "Fire drill, let's keep calm energy." Mara didn't. She skimmed error logs. The heartbeat challenge pulsed unacknowledged. She needed 30 seconds inside the system with her credentials and her face, and then the pipes would clear like arteries after a stent. 30 seconds, not a speech. OMS. Keane, HR said, stopping at her desk. The woman's badge flashed in Mara's peripheral vision. "Could you come with us?" Mara kept her hands on the keyboard. "In a minute now," Preston said. The good cheer had dropped 2 degrees. "We're making changes in enterprise risk," Mara stood finally. She was 46 and had been in this building longer than the carpet. The floor smelled like burned dust and burnt coffee. Screens scrolled loss numbers that weren't losses yet, only delays, anxiety quantified. "Make them after I push the refresh," she said. "You've got a compliance cycle rolling. The system's expecting we cannot be held hostage by one engineer's antique paranoia," Preston interrupted, smiling mostly for the observers who'd gathered as if gravity pooled where his shoes touched carpet. "Your role ends today." Someone's phone hit the floor. Mara couldn't tell who. Behind her, the monitors went from red to darker red. Theo's voice was a thread. "Sir, the function she's talking about, mister." "Park," Preston said, "today you'll learn the difference between urgency and theatrics." The HR woman reached for Mara's badge. Mara pulled it back an inch. "Give me 30 seconds, she said softly. "I'll leave with my plant and my tote and whatever dignity you haven't torn out mechanically. But right now you have global counterparties waiting on transactions that will age into headlines if I don't." "You're done," Preston said. "Security will escort you," the metallic taste sharpened. Mara felt the eyes, coworkers who'd traded jokes with her in Slack, who'd called her wizard, who now shrank behind monitors like turtles in cubicles. It wasn't their fault. The calculus of American offices was simple. The person who argued with the boss lost, even when they were right, especially when they were right. She placed her badge on the desk. "You'll need this again," she said, and saw the flicker of something in Preston's face, annoyance at the suggestion that the future might be inconvenient. As HR guided her toward the elevator, alarms laced the. One of the screens flashed a new message in block letters: "Authorization required, original architect." No one said it out loud. Everyone read it. Theo swallowed audibly. The elevator doors opened with the patient sigh of a machine that did not care about human theater. Inside the mirrored box, Mara watched the floor recede and her own face float beside the HR reps. Freckles, hair pinned back with a drugstore clip, eyes that had stayed too long at every office she'd ever saved. She thought of the twins, Kate and Owen, at their state school in Pennsylvania, their text last night about an econ quiz and a dorm laundry disaster. She thought of her mortgage. She thought of the 30 seconds of code she had not pushed. When the elevator released them into the lobby, a cathedral of glass and brushed steel, someone jogged after them. Theo panting. He didn't look at HR. He pressed his phone into Mara's hand, screen on, a screenshot open. Authorization denied. Original architect required. You didn't get this from me, he whispered. Then louder for the HR files, sorry MS. Keane, I wanted to say thank you, Mr. Parks, one HR rep warned. Theo backed away, palms up. The security desk watched the tiny drama with the interested boredom of men who had seen everything and would see it again. Outside, the October air bit her cheeks. Midtown moved like it always moved, a river of coats and caffeine. The lobby doors sealed behind her. Mara stood on the sidewalk, the building's reflection swallowing her whole, and felt the world tilt. Not a fall, but the slow pivot of something heavy, turning toward her whether she wanted it or not. The wind off 6th Avenue snapped the hem of Mara Keane's blazer as if even the fabric knew she'd been expelled. Her badge was gone, her login disabled, her desk a crime scene she wasn't allowed to re-enter. The city didn't care, taxis honked, food carts steamed. A saxophone on the corner played a tune too light for the weight in her chest. She stood under Meridian Capital's 40 stories of glass and steel, wondering if she was more furious or more hot. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A text from Kate, her daughter. Kate, got the econ quiz back, B+. Dad says hi. You good? Mara typed half a reply, proud of you, sweetheart, tell your brother too, and stopped. What was she supposed to say? By the way, I was fired in front of 200 people while the system I built screamed for help. She deleted the draft. Another buzz. Not Kate this time. An unknown number. She hesitated, thumb hovering. She answered. Hello, a clipped female voice, MS. Keane, this is Dana Whitaker with the International Markets Commission. I'd like to confirm why your biometric hasn't been registered today. Mara blinked, stepping out of the human current before she was shouldered into traffic. Excuse me, settlement systems show your authorization missing from the cycle. You're listed as the original architect for Meridian's transfer backbone. I'm trying to determine whether this is a technical delay or an internal decision. Mara's laugh came out like a bark. Internal decision. Preston Vale fired me on the floor 10 minutes ago. You can probably find the clip on someone's Instagram by now. Silence, then the kind that means someone's taking notes. You're telling me Meridian terminated the only authorized architect during a live compliance cycle? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Another pause. Dana's voice came back lower. Thank you for confirming. Expect a follow-up, click. Mara stared at the screen. The call had lasted 72 seconds. She wanted to throw the phone into a storm drain. Instead, it buzzed again. A direct message notification from Slack, though her account was supposed to be deactivated. Sender Theo Park. THEO, I know I shouldn't be doing this. But you need to see it. An image attached. The same screenshot he'd shoved at her in the lobby, authorization denied. Original architect required. The timestamp was 15 minutes old. Mara typed back before she could stop herself. Theo, stop. They'll trace this. THEO already deleted. But MS. Keane, it's multiplying. Frankfurt's down now too. They're calling it latency. The word landed like a bruise. Corporate code for lie. She ducked into a Starbucks on 42nd, needing a seat, any seat. The place smelled of burnt beans and panic deadlines. She slid into a corner, phone face down on the sticky table. Her reflection in the window looked like someone's exhausted aunt, not a woman who had carried billions across continents while the rest of the world slept. Her mind spun. 20 years of sacrifices, missing Kate's piano recitals, missing Owen's baseball tournaments, missing anniversaries, birthdays, because the system can't sleep. She had been the system. And now she was an error message. The barista called out names, paper cups lined like a chorus. Mark, Jenna, Tom's, no Mara, no recognitions. Just another anonymous body taking up space. Her phone lit again. Another unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. MS. Keane, a male voice said, smoother than Dana Whitaker's. This is Patrick Dorsey, legal counsel for Meridian Capital. Off the record, can we meet today? We'd prefer to resolve this quickly. Resolve what? She wanted to scream. Her mortgage, her reputation, the billions currently trapped because Preston Vale didn't like sharing oxygen. Instead, she said, not today, and hung up. For a long moment, she pressed her palms flat against the table, grounding herself. Then she whispered into the coffee-soaked air, they erased me from payroll, not from physics. The words steadied her. No matter what Meridian claimed, her architecture was still humming inside their walls, demanding her touch. And now regulators knew it too. On the other side of the glass, the city marched by indifferent. Mara had never felt more alone, nor more certain that loneliness wasn't the same thing as being powerless. She picked up her phone, opened a new note, and began to write. Every design choice, every safeguard, every reason she'd refused to strip the biometric check even when the board mocked her. If they wanted her gone, fine. But if the system collapsed without her, at least the record would show exactly who had pulled the trigger. Outside, the saxophone on the corner bent a note so sharp it made her teeth ache. Mara listened, fingers moving faster. The music was lonely. So was she. But neither one was finished yet. By mid-afternoon, the Meridian Capital operations floor had the tight, humming dread of an ER waiting room. Screens flickered with stalled confirmations, Tokyo, then Frankfurt, then Toronto. Settlement clocks ticked past their deadlines. Every minute the pipes stayed jammed meant counterparties calling, regulators circling, reporters sniffing. Preston Vale stood in the glass-walled boardroom like a preacher on Sunday, arms spread, voice lifted for the disciples. "Let's all breathe," he declared, the skyline behind him. "We are experiencing latency. Network congestion." Nothing more, the word rolled across the floor like incense. Latency. Harmless, temporary. Safe to repeat in emails, on Zoom calls, in customer updates. Theo Park sat at his cubicle, hands clenching around his headset. On his second monitor, a system message blinked, authorization missing, original architect. He muted the line and leaned toward his supervisor, a balding man named Greg who never raised his voice higher than a sigh. "Greg," Theo whispered, "it's not congestion. Look, these are biometric checks failing." "It's multiplying," Greg pinched the bridge of his nose. "Oh, not today, kid." "Not with Vale in the room, but it's her signature it wants," Theo said. "Mara Keane's." "I watched her. Do you like your job?" Greg interrupted. His tone was tired, not cruel. "Then repeat after me, latency." "Say it enough times and you'll believe it." Theo swallowed the words, but the pit in his stomach grew heavier. Inside the boardroom, Preston waved to the PR director. "Draft a client bulletin. Keep it vague but confident. Minor processing delays due to high volume, stress high volume. People understand high volume." One of the directors, a thin woman in a green blazer, raised a hand. "But Preston, the timestamps, these are compliance failures, not traffic jams." Preston flashed his camera-ready grin. "Oh, semantics. Clients want reassurance, not jargon. If you say compliance failure, CNBC calls it a scandal. If you say latency, they nod and move on." The CTO, pale and sweating, tried. "We can't spoof the biometric window." "It isn't optional," Preston cut him off. "Everything is optional if you pay smart people enough to code around it." Mara's name hung unspoken in the air. No one dared say it. She was a ghost, now a liability. Theo unmuted his headset. A client in Frankfurt was shouting, voice distorted by the line. "Funds are trapped, billions, what the hell is happening over there?" Theo's mouth went dry. "We're experiencing latency, sir. High volume. It'll clear shortly." He ended the call and felt sick. I knew it wasn't true. He also knew he'd just become part of the lie. At 2:07 p.m., a new email hit every inbox. Mandatory all HNDS at 2:30. Presence required. The subject line pulsed like a threat. Theo stared at it, then at the screenshot Mara had sent him earlier, the damning block letters demanding her authorization. He thought about her face in the lobby, calm but furious, saying, "You'll need this again." If she was right and Vale kept spinning, Meridian wasn't just facing latency. They were staring down catastrophe, and he was complicit. On the boardroom floor, Vale's voice boomed once more. "This is a teachable moment, team. Don't dramatize. Don't panic. We control the narratives." But Theo, heart-pounding, realized what Mara had known all along. The narrative might be controlled, but the truth would not. By the time the mandatory all-hands began, the conference bridge was jammed with regional heads barking from every time zone. The boardroom's giant monitor split into dozens of rectangles, faces framed by fluorescent lights, voices rising with the same refrain, "Where are funds?" Dana Whittaker's square appeared mid-row, her tone sharp enough to slice the static. "Oh, Mr. Vale, let's skip euphemisms. We've confirmed through system logs that Meridian's settlement network is not suffering latency. It's rejecting transfers because the required biometric refresh has not been completed. Preston Vale leaned forward, elbows on the glossy table. Dana, let's keep this constructive. Technicalities confuse stakeholders. This isn't a technicality, Dana cut. You terminated your only authorized architect during a live compliance cycle. The wound was self-inflicted, silence followed. Theo, listening from his cubicle, felt the air change, like everyone had just realized they'd been caught lying in church. One of the European directors broke in, voice shaking. Are you telling us we're bleeding billions because you fired Keane this morning? Preston's jaw tightened. He kept the grin but not the warmth. We will address the architect matter. In the meantime, my team is preparing a workaround. There is no workaround, the CTO said quietly. His voice was almost lost under the chatter, but those who heard it stilled. Preston turned slowly, eyes narrowing. Excuse me, the CTO swallowed. The system requires the original biometric. It was designed that way. By MS. You can't spoof it, you can't override it. That's the point, a regulator from London chimed in, exasperated. So the only person who can fix this is the woman you marched out of the building? Theo imagined Mara at that exact moment, probably still in Midtown, maybe at some coffee shop, watching strangers hustle by while her life's work sat locked behind glass. He pictured her badge lying on the HR desk like a severed limb. Preston spread his hands, palms up. Let's not dramatize. We have options, no, Preston, Dana said flat. You had options. You ignored them. Now the market's frozen because you decided optics mattered more than operations. The room bristled. Directors exchanged looks, some furious, some frightened. Stock tickers scrolled in the corner of the screen, the numbers beginning to dip like a fever chart. Theo muted his line and whispered to Greg, they know. Everyone knows. Greg stared at his monitor as if it might offer him a hole to crawl into. Shut your mouth, kid, he muttered. Theo could. Not anymore. Dana's voice, calm but lethal, ended the call, Mr. Vale, the commission will be escalating this. We'll expect a full incident report including employment actions within the hour, the feed cut. The boardroom emptied of noise, leaving only the hum of the HVAC and the thunder of Preston's pulse visible in his temples. Across the cubicle rows, no one dared to speak. They just stared at the red banners on their screens, each one a reminder that the truth had slipped the leash and was running free. The diner on Bryant Park was nearly empty, the kind of place where the booths were patched with duct tape and the coffee came in chipped white mugs that had seen better decades. Mara Keane sat with her back to the window, coat draped beside her, a legal pad open like a shield. She hadn't written much, just a few bullet points, shaky from too much caffeine and too little air. The door jingled. A man in a trim navy suit entered, scanning until he saw her. Patrick Dorsey, Meridian's general counsel, moved like someone who'd spent his life hiding knives inside handshakes. He slid into the booth across from her. Mara, he said smoothly, as if they were old friends catching up. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I'll be quick, I didn't agree to anything, she said. I'm just eating lunch. He smiled thinly, set his briefcase down and leaned. Look, this morning was unfortunate. Preston can be theatrical. But we're all professionals here. There's a very simple way to resolve this. You come in, perform a biometric refresh, and we put this whole misunderstanding behind us. In exchange, Meridian is prepared to offer you a generous package. She stirred her coffee slowly. A bribe, you mean, severance, he corrected. A consulting arrangement. Call it what you like. 6 figures, tax-advantaged. NDA included, of course. You'd walk away comfortable, respected. No one needs to know the details. Mara's laugh was short, bitter. No one needs to know that Preston Vale tanked his own firm by firing the only person who could keep the system alive. Patrick's expression didn't change. Optics matter. You understand that better than anyone. The waitress came by with a refill. Mara let her pour, the hiss of hot liquid buying her a few seconds. She thought about Kate's tuition, Owen's internship search, the mortgage payment scheduled to auto-draft next week. 6 figures would solve all of it, at least for a while. Before she could answer, the bell jingled again. A second figure entered, tall gray blazer, short hair clipped with military precision. Dana Whittaker spotted Mara and walked straight over, ignoring Patrick's stiffening posture. OMS. Keane, Dana said, sliding into the booth beside her. I hope I'm not interrupting, you are, Patrick snapped. Dana ignored him, her eyes steady on Mara. I'm here in my official capacity. The commission appreciates your cooperation earlier. What you told me confirms a serious breach. We're offering you a path forward, whistleblower protections, federal backing, and the chance to make sure this never happens again. Patrick leaned across the table. Don't listen to her. That path is subpoenas, depositions, public mudslinging. Years of lawyers tearing apart your career. What I'm offering is peace, Dana countered, calm as a surgeon. What I'm offering is integrity. And frankly, the truth is going to surface whether you sign an NDA or not. The question is whether you want to be complicit in covering it up or the person who stopped it. Mara's hand tightened on her mug. Two roads, both brutal. One offered money and silence, the other offered protection and exposure, but also years under the microscope. She thought of her kids again, Kate's nervous laugh, Owen's habit of pacing while talking on the phone. They didn't know yet. How could she tell them Mom lost her job because she told the truth, and now she's dragging us through hearings and headlines? Patrick's voice softened, rehearsed empathy sliding in. Mara, you've given them 20 years. Take what's yours. Let it go, Dana's voice cut like clean glass. Or take this moment and make sure the next woman who builds something indestructible doesn't get humiliated for it. Mara looked from one to the other, two emissaries from worlds that could not coexist. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She set down the mug carefully, as if afraid it might shatter in her grip. I need air, she said, sliding out of the booth. Both of them stood too, waiting, but she held up a hand. No, you two can wait. I'll decide on my own. Outside, the late afternoon sky glowed sickly orange over Midtown. She pressed her back against the brick wall, breathing hard, hearing echoes of the monitors, the alarms, Preston's smug voice. She had been erased from the payroll, yes, but not from the system and not from the truth. Whatever choice she made next, she knew one thing: it would define her more than 20 years of invisible work ever had. Mara Keane sat in the dim back corner of a carking loft in Brooklyn, a place that smelled faintly of printer ink and burned espresso. Rows of young freelancers clacked on laptops, pretending not to notice her. She'd chosen the seat farthest from the windows, half out of habit, half out of fear. At exactly 7:15 p.m., Theo Park slipped through the door. He looked even younger without the cover of cubicles, hoodie half-zipped, backpack slung too heavy on one shoulder. His eyes darted as if Meridian's security team might leap from behind the kombucha tap. He spotted her and hurried over. OMS. Keane, Mara, she corrected. If you're going to risk your neck meeting me, you can at least drop the formalities. Theo sat, setting his laptop down between them. His hands trembled as he pulled out a flash drive. I copied logs before they locked me out. Don't ask how. It'll show you what we're up against. Mara raised an eyebrow. You realize you've just handed me evidence of corporate negligence? You could get blacklisted from finance before your career even starts. He gave a small, bitter smile. I'd rather be blacklisted than complicit. Before she could answer, two more figures approached. Janelle Hargrove from Compliance Ops, sharp suit jacket over jeans, eyes ringed from too many sleepless nights, and Rory Flynn, an SRE contractor with the nervous energy of someone who lived on caffeine and incident tickets. Mara stiffened. You followed him, Janelle shook her head. We asked him where you'd be. Didn't give him much choice. Rory slid into a chair, leaning forward. We're terrified, Mara. Management told us to stop using the word biometric. We're supposed to call it latency. They've banned us from even acknowledging the red alerts in JIRA. Do you know how insane that is? Theo nodded. They're gaslighting us. Everyone on the floor knows it's broken, but nobody wants to be the one veil singles out next. Mara looked at each of them, the analyst who couldn't keep lying, the compliance officer with her career on the line, the contractor who knew systems better than org charts. Ordinary people who had been invisible until now. She felt the lump rise in her throat. You're not crazy, she said quietly. You're the only grown-ups in the room. Janelle dropped a thick folder on the table. Printed before they could lock me out. Audit trails, emails, timestamps. It's all here. Vale knew about the risk. He ignored it, Rory added, and I've been monitoring an auxiliary endpoint, something called aries-aux. It's siphoning logs to a private archive. I don't know who set it up, but it stinks. Mara leaned back, exhaling. Aries-aux, she'd never built that. Silence pressed in. Finally, Theo asked, "So what do we do?" Mara tapped the folder with her finger. "We document everything. Build a reactivation plan that prioritizes customer funds, not Vale's reputation. Then we hand it to the regulators in daylight with proof." Rory chewed his lip. "That could make us whistleblowers, or pariahs," Janelle added. Mara looked at them, her voice steady. "Or heroes. Depends on who writes the history." The four of them sat in the hum of the carking space, surrounded by strangers sipping cold brew and arguing about app designs. It felt surreal, plotting the rescue of billions while a guy in headphones nearby was editing a podcast. Theo broke the quiet. "If we're doing this, we're a team, right?" Mara felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time since her badge had been stripped, she wasn't alone. She saw it in their faces, too, the relief of finding others who refused to pretend. "Oh yes," she said firmly. "Oh, we're a team. And if Vale thinks he erased me, he's about to learn what happens when the ghosts fight back." Janelle cracked the faintest smile. "Guess Meridian just found its real war room." And in that dingy loft, among the hum of laptops and the clink of coffee cups, Mara realized she'd found her tribe. Not sanctioned, not salaried, but hers, and maybe enough to change everything. At 9 p.m., the 32nd floor of Meridian Capital was buzzing like a movie set. Someone had hauled in folding tables, pizza boxes were stacked for optics, and every monitor displayed scrolling lines of code that weren't connected to anything, screensavers dressed up as heroics. A hand-lettered sign taped to the wall read, "Global Resilience War Room." Preston Vale stood in the center, shirt sleeves rolled, barking orders like a general. "I want cameras rolling in 20 minutes. Capture the energy. Show the world we're in control," the PR director scribbled notes. "Do you want footage of the team coding or, of course, coding?" Preston snapped. "Get B-roll of fingers flying over keyboards, pizza crusts, caffeine cans." Wall Street loves hustle porn. From his corner, Theo Park watched the spectacle with nausea. He knew the scrolling green letters were nonsense. He also knew that no one dared point it out. His phone buzzed, a secure message from Mara. "Neutral site arranged. Regulator will host Reiki. Transparency guaranteed. You with us?" Theo's pulse spiked. He typed quickly under the desk. "I'm in." "What about Vale?" "Mara, he's staging theater. Regulators won't buy it. Stay calm, keep eyes open." Across the room, Preston clapped his hands. "Listen up, people. Regulators are panicking, so we're negotiating. They want us to involve Ms. Keane, but here's the line, she's cooperating with us." "She's on our team again," Theo blinked. That was a lie. A manager raised her hand hesitantly. "Sir, is she cooperating?" Preston beamed. "Optics, folks. What matters is the story. By tomorrow's opening bell, clients will believe their money is safe because we projected strength. That's the game." Theo's throat tightened. He whispered to Greg, "He's telling everyone she's back, but she's not." Greg didn't meet his eyes. "Theo, you're young. Learn this now, truth doesn't pay the bills." "Stories do," the words made Theo want to throw up. Meanwhile, back in Brooklyn, Mara sat with Janelle, Rory, and Dana Whittaker in the carking loft. Dana had spread paperwork across the table, consent forms, neutral site protocols, a chain of custody checklist written like scripture. Dana's voice was calm but firm. "If you agree, the biometric reactivation happens under commission oversight. No Meridian interference. Every keystroke logged, every witness sworn. Your condition, Ms. Keane, about public transparency approved. A live customer-facing status page will post in real time." Mara nodded slowly. "And Vale can't twist it, can't claim he fixed it himself." Dana allowed a small smile. "Not unless he learns to clone your thumbprint and retina in the next 12 hours. Janelle exhaled in relief. "Finally," but Rory frowned. "What if Vale refuses? He controls the PR machine." Mara's voice was steady, harder than she felt. "Then we make him irrelevant. We fix the system with regulators watching. Once the market stabilizes, no one will care about his sound bites." Theo's next message buzzed her phone. "He's leaking to the floor that you're cooperating. Using you as cover." Mara showed the screen to Dana. "See, he's already spinning it." Dana adjusted her glasses. "Which is why we moved tomorrow. We put you in a neutral facility at 10:00 a.m. Cameras optional but documentation airtight. When you press that key, there will be no question whose hand did it. For a long moment, Mara stared at the checklist. She remembered Preston's voice booming across the trading floor. We can't be held hostage by one engineer's antique paranoia. And yet here they were, held hostage by exactly that because she had refused to compromise. She looked at Theo's name glowing on her phone, at Janelle's folder of evidence, at Rory's anxious eyes. She felt the knot of isolation loosen another notch. All right, she said. Tomorrow we end the theater. No more shadows. Dana gathered the papers with precision. Good. Then let's give the markets a show they won't forget. Back on the 32nd floor, Preston was smiling for the cameras, basking in the glow of his fake war room. He didn't know yet that another stage was being set, one where he wouldn't control the script. The neutral facility sat on the edge of Midtown, a windowless floor in a federal building that usually hosted tax auditors and occasional SEC depositions. That morning, it had been transformed into a command center. Folding tables, government-issued laptops, a rack of cameras, and a clock mounted on the wall, its second hand sweeping with merciless precision. Mara Keane arrived flanked by Dana Whitaker and two commissioned staffers. Her pulse thudded as the security guard scanned her ID, then her palm. Every step echoed too loudly, like she was walking into a trial rather than a server room. Inside, the air hummed with tension. Meridian had sent a small delegation. Patrick Dorsey, the general counsel with his polished briefcase, and a younger VP from operations whose eyes screamed that she'd rather be anywhere else. Preston Vale had refused to appear in person, citing optics, but a livestream window flickered on one of the monitors, his perfect smile dialed in from the fake war room. "OMS. Keane," Preston said, voice booming through the speakers. "Good to see you cooperating again. Let's keep this brisk. Customers are anxious." Mara ignored him, pulling her chair up to the workstation. Dana placed the checklist in front of her like a set of vows. "Everything you do," Dana reminded, "will be logged, recorded, and mirrored to regulators on 3 continents. You have full control of the session." "Ready?" Mara flexed her hands. They trembled slightly, but not enough to stop her from laying her thumb against the scanner. The device beeped, green light pulsing. On the monitor, a message blinked, biometric validated. Original architect signature accepted. The operations VP actually clapped once before catching herself. It's in," she murmured. Mara typed with steady precision. Each command opened a locked gate, rehydrating frozen queues. In Tokyo, billions of yen unfroze and rushed through. Frankfurt cleared next, then Toronto. Relief rippled across the regulators' faces as if oxygen had returned to the room. Preston's voice oozed from the speakers. "Oh, excellent. See, teamwork solves everything. Let's spin this as a scheduled refresh, nothing more." Patrick drafted the release, but then Mara's terminal pinged. A secondary stream lit up, foreign to her design. "Wait," she said, frowning. "What's aries-aux?" The room stilled. Lines of data scrolled across the screen, outgoing packets to a private endpoint, labeled aries-aux01. Logs, transaction metadata, user credentials. Dana's head snapped toward the Meridian reps. "Oh, Mr. Dorsey," Patrick shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not familiar with that system," Mara's voice hardened. "Don't lie. This isn't part of my architecture." Someone built a siphon. On screen, Preston's smile cracked. "Aries-aux is a contingency measure." "Standard redundancy," Dana shot him a glare. "You're exfiltrating live transaction logs to an unregistered server during a market freeze." "It's optionality," Preston said, jaw twitching. "Good governance requires backups." Mara's hands hovered over the keyboard. She could terminate the siphon in 2 keystrokes, but doing so on camera would expose Preston's secret in real time. Her throat tightened. If she acted, there'd be no going back. She met Dana's eyes. Dana gave a small nod. Mara typed, hit enter. The siphon choked, connections severed. The console flashed, unauthorized endpoint terminated. Preston's feed erupted. "What have you done? That was proprietary," Dana cut him off. "What you call proprietary, the commission calls concealment. And now we have proof." For the first time in 20 years, Mara allowed herself to lean back in her chair. The queues were clearing, the markets stabilizing, and the truth, ugly, undeniable, was written into the logs. She whispered mostly to herself, they needed the ghost after all. Theo's message buzzed her phone from his hiding spot at Meridian, we saw it. Everyone saw. You saved it. But Mara didn't feel saved yet. She felt the weight of eyes on the cameras in the markets across every screen and knew the fight wasn't finished. It had only shifted. By the time dusk settled over Manhattan, the markets had exhaled. The cues were clear, counterparties reconciled, and headlines shifted from panic to recovery. Yet in Meridian's 32nd floor war room, the silence was worse than alarms. Employees sat frozen, staring at the monitors where regulators had just replayed the siphon feed like a smoking gun. Preston Vale's livestream window had vanished, cut off mid-protest by Dana Whitaker's team. Patrick Dorsey's phone was buzzing nonstop, each vibration a summons he couldn't answer. On Slack, a quiet eruption began. Direct messages pinged across the company. Did you see the rekey? It was her. Keane did it. Vale's cooked. Totally cooked. Theo Park stared at his screen. He'd muted 3 chats, but they kept multiplying. His stomach twisted with a mix of vindication and dread. Finally, he opened a private DM and typed, THEOMS. Keane, you saved it. Again. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. A pause, then Mara's reply, MARA, take care of each other. That's how this stops repeating. It wasn't angry. That almost made it worse. At 8:17 p.m., an email blast hit every Meridian inbox. Board accepts resignation of CEO Preston Vale, effective immediately. Severance withheld pending investigation. Interim leadership to be announced. A stunned hush fell over the floor. Some employees exchanged high fives in whispers. Others slumped in relief. A few just sat blankly, as if realizing how close the company had come to collapse because of one man's ego. Greg, Theo's supervisor, shook his head. I've seen firings, but never like this. They cut the king's head off on live TV, Theo muttered, not soon enough. Greg shot him a look, half warning, half respect. Meanwhile, in the neutral facility, Mara packed her tote. Dana approached, voice softer now. The commission will need you again, statements, hearings. But tonight, you should go home. Breathe. Mara glanced at the regulators, at the sealed logs, at the exhausted faces of Janelle and Rory who had stood with her. Home feels far away, she admitted. Dana handed her a business card. When you're ready, call. We'll walk with you through the noise. As Mara stepped into the night, her phone buzzed again. An email this time, subject line stark, invitation coffee. The sender was Tetra North, a rival firm known for poaching Meridian's best engineers. The message was brief: we value architects who build systems that last. Let us know when you're ready to talk. She stared at it, heart caught between anger and a strange flicker of validation. After all these years of being invisible, her name was suddenly a beacon. Back at Meridian, Slack filled with awkward apologies. I should have spoken up. We froze. You deserved better. Thank you. Mara scrolled, her thumb pausing on a line from someone she didn't even know. You showed us what integrity looks like when it costs everything. She locked the phone, her reflection faint in the screen. The city around her pulsed with neon and noise, indifferent to one woman's redemption. Yet somewhere inside the chaos, she felt something crack open, an unfamiliar space where choice lived. She could disappear into quiet consulting. She could testify and watch Vale's empire burn. She could even walk into Tetra North and start again. But for the first time in decades, the decision was hers alone. And though exhaustion pressed heavy, Mara sensed it. Justice wasn't just Vale's downfall. It was the possibility, fragile, frightening, that her own story might finally begin. The next morning, Mara Keane found herself once again on the same stretch of sidewalk outside Meridian Capital. The glass tower glittered under the pale September sun, as though the previous day's humiliation and chaos had been scrubbed clean overnight. Commuters streamed in and out, coffee in hand, faces tight with routine. None of them knew how close the markets had come to cracking, or how one middle-aged engineer had been the fulcrum. She lingered at the edge of the revolving doors, the hum of the city around her. A part of her wanted to march back inside, reclaim her desk, her plants, her place. But another, stronger part knew that building had never really been hers. It had tolerated her, used her, and when it suited them, discarded her. Her phone buzzed. Okay, Mom, her daughter's voice was wary. We saw the news. Everyone's talking about this freeze. About you, Mara hesitated, then said softly, it's true. I was there. It was ugly, Kate exhaled. Are you okay? She looked up at the tower, then at her reflection in the glass, tired, lined, but still standing. I'm not sure yet. But I will be. There was a pause, then Owen's voice broke in on speaker. Mom, you sounded like a superhero on TV. Mara laughed, startled by the warmth of it. Superheroes don't get fired in front of their coworkers. Maybe they should, Owen said. People might actually listen. When she hung up, she stood still for a long time, letting their words settle. For years, she'd built her life around making sure the system never failed, even if it meant missing birthdays, concerts, dinners. And when the system did fail, she realized her kids were still there. Across the street, Dana Whittaker approached, crisp as ever, a paper cup in hand. Morning, MS. Keane, I'm not here to pull you into another meeting. I just wanted to say you did something rare yesterday. You didn't just fix a system. You changed the narrative, Mara arched an eyebrow. Did I? Feels more like I just pressed a button, Dana shook her head. Plenty of people can press buttons. Few stand their ground when it costs them everything. Whatever you choose next, consulting, teaching, another firm, leave the door open. People like you change rooms just by standing in them. She handed Mara the coffee, nodded, and disappeared into the tide of pedestrians. Mara stared at the cup, steam curling into the cool air. The city roared around her, taxis, sirens, the endless forward push. Behind her, Meridian hummed like nothing had happened. Ahead, the crosswalk light blinked from red hand to white figure. She didn't know if she'd take Tetra North's offer, or if she'd testify against Vale or build something new on her own terms. But for the first time in 20 years, she wasn't reacting to someone else's crisis. She was choosing. She pocketed her phone, lifted her chin, and stepped into the crosswalk as the walk sign glowed. The future wasn't certain, and that was the point. A door had been forced open, and this time she wouldn't let it shut.